he knew he was risking his life. It's not like he didn't know. But, you know, we see on a smaller and in some ways more pathetic scale all this played out again, over and over again. Today, it's basically a question of identity, and do you believe that life is a zero-sum game, and do you believe people can be reconciled? Do you believe that addition is better than subtraction, that multiplication is better than division? It's the oldest story in the world, but more painful here. And I do believe as a practical matter that if he had lived, there would have been a comprehensive agreement by 1998, and the last 22 years would have been totally different.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I want to say. Very often the history of political assassinations is much more ambiguous. Arguably, you know, John Wilkes Booth sparked a more harsh reconstruction for a period in America. But this young man got what he wanted. And it was a tragic thing. But I think you should know something. And then I don't know that I have anything else to contribute here, but I think you saw Prime Minister of America for the Oslo II signing. Okay, that was the first real handover of land. And it was very shortly before he was killed, and the last time we were together. There was a meeting in the White House beforehand where they, in private, signed 9 maps in triplicate with incredibly detailed instructions of the West Bank, the roads, crossings, the whole 9 yards. And I had to go out and take a phone call. I was the witness. He and Arafat would sign and I would witness. And about midway through it, I went to take the call, so I got off the phone and I was standing in front of me with Arafat behind him, and he said, "We have a problem." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "There's a bypass road that the map says is ours, and Arafat says we agreed to give it to him." And it was actually fairly important. And so I took him back in this little private dining room off the Oval Office, and I said, "Guys, I've been to Jericho one time. It was on a religious pilgrimage, neither of your religions. And you're gonna have to do this without me pretty soon. So you fix it. I don't care who gets the road. You decide, but we're 15 minutes late. The whole world press is out there. And what are we gonna do?" So 10 minutes later, they come out, and I said, "Well, what are we doing?" And Yitzhak said, "He's right, it's his. It's a mistake." And I said, "Well, you realize this, what are we gonna do?" And they said, "We'll go sign the maps, and then I'll give them the road Monday." And I said, "Okay, we can do that, because we don't have time to redraw them. But you realize if we do that as a matter of international law, that belongs to Israel." I looked at Arafat and I said that. And Arafat said his word is worth far more than any written contract. Can you imagine people treating each other like that today? I mean, Arafat lost his guts too at the end of his tenure. But the point is, Rabin owned his psyche in a good way. And he was a very, very great man. And the movie is powerful. It should remind us how quickly our better angels can be lost, and how quickly human opportunities can be squandered. And the rest of us should be mindful of that for all our days. I'll never forget, after all they'd been through, Yasser Arafat said, his word is worth far more than any written contract. And so think about that when you go home. It's a magnificent film because it hurts so much to watch.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are very privileged to have you both here with us tonight. It's not the first time that I watched the movie, and you know what? It's getting tougher. First time I cried a lot. Now the pain is much stronger. And more I come to the conclusion how this movie is well done and how important it is for future generations and for present people to understand, to watch, to see the process, to see what was happening in Israel, to see the contribution of religion, to see how politicians were using religion, and how dangerous it is to the existence of a democracy. And we are all very much worried about future of democracies in the world in face of what's happening today. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Secretary Hillary Clinton, for joining us, and thank you, Yaron, for your great work with all your partners.
Thank you. So I think that maybe we should have a few questions to President Clinton and DALIA Rabin. So I want to open that to the audience. Yes, over there. Sure. No, it's that person. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. President, and Delia, and everyone for making the film. I'd like to relate the emotions in the film to our current state of affairs. Mr. President, how do you see the road ahead for us with passions rising and frozen on both sides that can be seen as dangerous?
Well, I think, first of all, you know what happened in the immediate aftermath when Prime Minister Netanyahu defeated Shimon Peres in a very close race. It was the first time that negative television ad had ever been used on a saturation basis in Israel. And the man who was his advisor, Arthur Finkelstein, was a rather well-known person in New York circles. He was close to the late Roy Cohn, who was Senator Joe McCarthy's political advisor, and later came home to New York when McCarthy was sent packing, and began to advise Fred and Donald Trump. And they're great at basically creating division and demonizing. And Shimon Peres, I never will forget, I called him one day, I said, Shimon, you gotta answer these ads. I said, I know, it's not. And he said, I'm as older than the state of Israel. Nobody's gonna believe all that. And I said, you have no idea. And it was just the beginning. So then, but there was still the influence of Rabin was so great that when we later went to Wye River even, and King Hussein was still alive and dying, and literally got off his deathbed to come and stay at Wye River to try to negotiate the deal. Not the details, but just to almost shame them into both sides into agreeing. So we had that, and that's the last land the Palestinians ever got, at Wye River in 1998. And then the people of Israel voted for peace again, and Ehud Barak won, and then I got him to agree to a peace agreement, and Arafat promised me on more than one occasion that he was gonna finish it before I left office. I said, you know, all you gotta do is tell me the truth. You owe me the truth. And he said, oh God, if we don't do it when you're here, Lord knows how long it'll take. Well, it's 20 years and counting. So what's happened in the interim is that the Arabs have gone on to other things, and many of them have good relationships, economic and security relationships with Israel, and they got tired of the pleading, and then the Palestinians did what they did on the West Bank when Prime Minister Fayyad was there, and they were making some progress, and then got rid of him. Then I think it was a mistake to have the election that was held in 2005, and the Fatah made a terrible error. They ran someone from their more militant wing and their more moderate wing in parliamentary seats, and the Hamas got 43% of the vote, but won 59% of the seats in parliament from Gaza, and we've lived with all the ensuing consequences ever since. I don't know what to make of what's going on now, but they basically said that we'll give you $50 billion if you'll take a quilt of land. And I will say this, there have been some remarkably enduring expressions of Israeli values. The Likud President Rivlin, has stoutly resisted all the pressures to pardon and release the assassin because he will never express remorse. And he's been threatened with his life too, by the way. So I think Israel, and for most Israelis, things are humming along economically, and they seem fairly secure, and they're pretty evenly divided politically. We've had 2 elections where they can't decide who's gonna govern. And I think that you get these moments in history where a historic figure rises up and you get a chance to do something that will reconcile the past to the present and light the path to a different future. And it always is a risk. And there's always somebody gonna try to undo it. And you don't wanna let them go. And between the Prime Minister Rabin's assassination, which I think kept, in the end, Arafat, made him more vulnerable to all the naysayers and fears and, shadows. And then this is the only time he ever lied to me was when he didn't take the deal. He was hard to get to make a commitment, but normally if he did, he'd do what he said. And after that, it's just been anybody's guess what was gonna happen for 20 years. I still don't know what's gonna happen now.
I want to add one thing. 25 years have proved that there isn't another way. No other plan was put on the table since that has promoted peace in the area. And now we witness another plan, which is not one-to-one, but very similar to what Oslo, the cursed agreement, was actually going to do. So I am hopeful, I'm always hopeful. I say I cannot afford to give up because of what my father did and what he lived for and what he died because of. And we have to look forward with hope.
I agree with that. If I could just, yeah, please applaud that. But here's the issue, the problem, quite apart from the politics of the moment and all the players. I completely agree with that. But look what happened when Ariel Sharon, late in his life, basically got religion and withdrew from Gaza and was willing to try to, make peace. He had a stroke, which made me think that God must be on the other side. And he hung on, for a long time, unable to function. And, but look at all the grief he got from just moving the settlers out of Gaza. So if you want the plan that we all agreed to, that was envisioned by Oslo, that was most nearly fleshed out first by me and later by, when I was president in the last months of my administration, and then in Switzerland where both sides met and other things, you got to figure out what are you going to do with however many more settlers are there now when you look at the violence and the disruption that was present in Gaza. And I will say this, for people who are not involved with and super knowledgeable of affairs in Israel, even some American Jews, I think, will find this eye-opening when they see the settlers that otherwise seem like normal, nice people, but they're pretty hard over on their convictions about whether they're going to give up an inch. And what we tried to do was to get, basically, you could then get about 98% of the settlers on 3 or 4% of the land adjacent to the 67 borders. And it's not even close to that now. So that's the issue. I still think there's got to be a two-state solution, and I don't think it looked like this crazy quilt. When I saw this proposal, this latest thing, it reminded me of something called the Owen Plan when we were trying to resolve the brutality in Bosnia. And the same thing, they basically tried to chop Bosnia up in like little squares wherever there was an ethnic majority. They didn't have settlers. It was a different fact how they got there. They just took where they were. But you could tell it was just, it was an impenetrable mess. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But you should know that what Dalia said is right. But to do it, you have to be able to answer, so how are we going to handle this settler thing?